Hello, everybody. I'm Rick DiClemente with StarSelf.com. This is a show called Astrology Unplugged. And tonight we are at week number 6. We're doing a 10-week, maybe longer, approximately 10-week beginner's course in astrology. Let me put that video up on the screen so you'll see. Let's see here. There we go. So tonight is week number 6. We're going to be concentrating on looking at natal charts directly, not real deeply. We'll be looking at them. A couple of things I wanted to tell you about is I want to thank the people who have been kind enough to make some donations to help out with the payment for Zoom and to keep my business going. I appreciate it. And if anybody else, it is a free class, but anybody else would feel like donating, you can go to my website, starself.com. There's a donation button, much appreciated. Now, as I've said to you, those of you who've been here for a while, I'm pushing my book. This is the required reading in this class, and you really need to have the exquisite zodiac that Liza and I wrote for understanding the signs. Thank you. And tonight I'm going to start pushing this book. It's a 1960-something book by March and McEvers called Learning Astrology, The Only Way to Learn Astrology, Volume 1. Basic principles, because it's really good about what does Mars mean in Cancer, what does Jupiter mean in Leo, what does Mars mean square to Saturn, etc., as a reference book, okay? And there are many of these types of books out there. This is a pretty solid one, which is why I chose this. Now, we have been talking about signs, and you'll just see how over and over and over and over and over, the more you know about the signs, the more you know about the planets, the more you're going to go somewhere. And if you don't, you're not going anywhere. And I'm not going to push the class real hard, but you have to know all these different sides of the signs, different sides to it. One thing I always tell beginners, and it's really true, is that when you start to translate, of course, you're going to sound goofy and you're going to sound wrong because it's really hard, but a lot of you are going to be kind of right. So don't be real quick to push yourself down, especially if you have Virgo tendencies. Oh, I got that wrong. No, it's not that black and white. A lot of times when you start to translate something, you're getting up the right trees, but you're not up far enough and you're not on the right branch. So don't be quick to throw it away. Stick with it. Now what I do when I read, I read what the chart says. I read what the chart tells me. I have failed so many times by saying, oh, well, it don't look like that. Don't listen to that. The chart is right. Now, some charts are really complex, and there's a lot of inner fighting going on in the chart. You have to be very wise to know when to stop looking at the chart and when to start conversing with the person. But you got to remember, you are looking at a person who is a living organism that is described in their seed. Their chart is their seed. We're cross-section of seeds, and it's amazing how we're walking charts. Anyhow, for those of you, the ones who are present with me tonight, I do have all your charts, and I'll be working with your charts with the public here. My objective is not to read for people. My objective is to use a chart with examples, and I'm not going to go into too many experiences that you've had, to show people how a natal chart is expressed, how the inner workings are. So tonight we're going to work with Peggy's chart, and I'll get started right away. I had a note to myself, and I don't even know what I meant. Okay. That's pretty clever. Okay. Now this chart, and this is Peggy's chart, who was born September 6, 1953 in Tokyo. Now, I want to tell you right away that when you do a chart for such a distant place, she will always have two charts. She'll always have her natal chart in Tokyo. She will always have her relocated chart too, which is the one translated as if she were born in Pittsburgh. Both will be true. Don't get in this either or thinking. Both will be true, and look at what the transits are doing to both. And myself, I stay pretty glued to the birth chart, the birth city. What if you're born? What if you're born on a space shuttle on the way back? Think of that. Somebody's going to be born on a space shuttle sometime, and they're going to have the Earth in their chart. And then you got to figure out which way the shuttle was spinning when the sun came up. Well, that's going to be something. And what does the Earth mean in the chart? So we got a lot to do. Right now, we're going to do Western astrology based upon your geocentric, where you were born on this earth. Okay? Now, the time you were born and the place you were born has a lot to do with defining your houses. Which we're going to remember to do here and focus on tonight. Each planet is in a sign and it's in a house. Okay, we're not going to get into the aspects, all the lines in between till next week because it's confusing enough. Do not give up hope. You should be very confused at this point. I have so many clients, so many students quit around the 4th or 5th week. That's absolutely normal. It's normal. Just let it go. If you don't get certain things, let it go. If you look at your chart and see all kind of little pieces, you don't know what that means and that, let it go. I still see parts of mine. I don't know what it means. 42 years later. So stick with it. Now, I want to tell you this right away. I'll tell you this right away. This is my DiClementeism. I come up with 4 rules when I teach. When you look at a chart, there's 4 things you're going to see, in my opinion. There's going to be things right away that you know what that means. Moon and Leo. Well, the person's kind of boisterous emotionally. Mercury and Virgo. Well, they're kind of analytical and strong-minded. There's things you're going to know. 2, what I call things that blink. And that's the biggest part of the chart. Like you got Saturn next to Neptune, and you got Uranus square to Pluto, and you're kind of certain it might mean this, but it might not mean that. And the reason it blinks is you know it's an important area of the chart, and you don't know what it means. So it's flashing, which means you need a dialogue with the client. The client's going to tell you what it means, but they don't know the astrological words. And then through the reading, the two of you will start to meet. So that's the biggest chunk of a chart, which is stuff that's blinking. You're not sure. Like they got Venus in between Saturn and Mars. 3 planets together. You don't know what I mean. You're not that brilliant. You don't know, but let it blink, and it may blink forever. But as time goes on, you'll start to see. And also, certain parts of the chart today might mean this, and a year from now might mean that. So be light with your chart. Never use a pen. Always use a light pencil when you translate it. You end up with a mud pie. 3 things that are karmic. Whether it's Pluto in your chart, whether it's Saturn in your chart, whether it's planets in certain houses, you just don't know how you got it, but it just feels like it's karmic. Okay, it's karmic. And boy, good luck with translating that. 4, stuff you will never know. You're not going to know. You're not going to know. What did the Pluto-Uranus conjunction of 1965 really mean? What did the 60s Pluto conjunct Uranus in Virgo really mean? I mean, we have a good idea, but stuff you'll never know. Stuff you'll know, stuff that blinks, stuff that's karmic, stuff that's you just don't know. So let's take a look with that opening dialogue, epilogue. Let's take a look at Peggy's chart. Okay. Pretty soon, I'm going to start using a different chart format because I don't use this one. The only reason I use this, you can clearly see the signs of the zodiac. Pretty soon, this is going to disappear. I don't use this one. I can just tell where the signs are. It just becomes obvious. These are the houses. First piece of pie, second. There's the numbers 1 through 12. Third house, fourth house, fifth house, sixth house, they go to 12. They're usually almost always different sizes. If you're born somewhere near Wheeling or Pittsburgh or the USA, notice how these houses are pretty much the same size. You get to different latitudes and they really start to get distorted. The houses are just, how are we going to divide up space and time from the time that she was born at 10:42 in the morning on this island called Japan, Tokyo, Japan. So the houses are delivered to us, calculated for us by the computer. We used to do it all by hand, which I'm not going to put you through. Do it all by hand calculations. How are we going to divide up space and time? We know that when Peggy was born and the earth is in the middle, and we looked at the sun, out beyond the sun was the constellation Virgo. Not really, but we're going to act like it was. We know that when she was born, the new moon was forming. Here's the moon coming to the sun. And in 1 month's time, the sun goes all the way through Virgo, and the moon goes all the way around. So in about 2 days, 3 days after Peggy was born, there was a new moon. About 3 days later, around 16 Virgo. About 3 days later, the sun went to 13, 14, 15, 16, and the moon got to about the same degree, and you had a new moon around 16 degrees of Virgo. If the moon were over here, you would have had a full moon. Okay. When it goes over your head, let it go. Okay? We got a lot to do. She was born when the sun was in Virgo. Now, the sun was in Virgo high in the sky, which it would be up at the top if it were noon. The sun and Virgo would both go up to the top. She was born at 10:42, almost 11. If she were born around sunrise, the sun and Virgo would be here. Don't be confused. You always can tell the Virgo symbol because that leg is crossed, and here the leg sticks out, which is the tail of Scorpio. Scorpio and Virgo look very similar, but the Scorpio, you see the stinger sticking out of the back of the Scorpio, and the Virgo, you see the legs crossed. The other symbols or glyphs are not that confusing. So if she were born at sunset, the sun and Virgo would be over here. So it's because the earth is in the middle turning. It's not because these things are moving. It's because the earth is spinning. This whole thing turns once per day. 1 day later, if she were born 1 day later, the sun would be at 14:10, approximately, and the moon would be about, the moon moves about 13 degrees in 1 day. 13 degrees in 1 day, because the moon moves very fast through the zodiac. The moon would be in early degrees of Virgo. It would have gone through Leo, the final 12 degrees of Leo during the next day. So she would be born with the sun around 14 and the moon around 1 degree Virgo. This is why I'm keeping the signs of the zodiac up here, okay? But at the next day, at the same time, the sun and moon would both be in the 11th house. The sun in the 10th house. The sun acts differently in the 10th house than it does in the 11th house, or in the 1st house, or in the 5th house. That's what the houses are for. Remember, the planet is the energy, the sign it's in is the type of energy it has, and the house it's in is where it gets expressed. What field of life? Once again, the 1st house, the very personal house. You're just the vibes you feel off of somebody. If a second house, a lot of planets in the second house, they become very rooted. Everybody's, excuse me, everybody's second house is always right here. And everybody's second house has Taurus qualities because the second sign is Taurus. But you can have different signs there. This person has the sign of Sagittarius on her second house cusp. So anything in a second house, such as Chiron here, would pick up Sagittarian qualities and Taurian qualities. If she had planets in the third, like her North Node here, she would have third house qualities and Capricorn qualities. Don't get deceived. I should take these off. We're not even going to spend time looking at Chiron or the North Node or Eris. That's why they're gray. We're going to spend our time with the 10 planets. These are still important, but I color them gray so they don't get in your eye when you're looking at the black planets. We're going to focus on the planets. Okay. The third house is very Geminian, and the third house is about, the second house is about your money and the stuff you have and your self-value. The third house is about local things that you do. It's about the mind, how the mind works, how the intellect works. It's very Geminian. Fourth house activities are very important about your home, your family, your roots, etc. It gets those qualities from the sign of Cancer, which is the fourth sign. The fifth sign of the zodiac is Leo. So the fifth house for everybody has to do with your children or your creations. And in this case, the fifth house is really close, and it's really in Aries' fifth house. So the fifth house planet would pick up Aries qualities. It would pick up Leo quality, just like anybody's fifth house planets everywhere will pick up Leo qualities. They'll have different signs, but the fifth house is always Leo-like. The sixth house is the Virgo house. The sixth house is your work, your small animals. It's your health. It's your sense of service to people, whereas the 12th house is large animals. Small animals are the sixth house. You'll start to ask yourself, why is this like this? Well, the reason why is it is. And it's been proven through thousands of years. That's where it comes from. The sixth house, you look for trouble or indications about your diet or your health. The sixth house is very indicative. Like somebody might have a lot of sixth house planets and you wonder why they're a nurse. It's because the planet's in the sixth house. Not the other stuff, not even the signs at all. The seventh house is the Libra house. Seventh has a lot to do with marriage and relationships, and it has a lot to do with your persona, your public persona, the role you play in the world. Remember, when we go back to our early zodiac, the first half of the zodiac is about me. The second half of the zodiac is about me plus you. So the seventh house is where that change takes place. When you have that change from all this me, all of a sudden you have us in the seventh and onward. So this quadrant here, 7, 8, and 9, which is all explained in this book, is the quadrant of relationships. So when you see a person with a lot of seventh house and a lot of eighth house, you see some people that have a ton in 7 and 8, and you know right away, I don't care what the sign is, you know that they're heavily into relationships. And if their relationship is going sour, you got a bummed out client. Okay? That's because of the planet in the house, not the sign. But we're looking for big imbalances. Seventh house, again, relationships. Eighth house, deeper relationships, because it picks up the connotation of Scorpio. That's why it's deeper. More. The eighth house is the big deal house. It's the one or obsessed with. I want somebody that means something in my life. That's the 8th house. The 9th house, and you'll notice Peggy has 1, 2, 3, 4 planets in the 9th house. So she is a Virgo, and Virgos are not typically very philosophical. And she has been the one student in this class who's been on me left and right since the very beginning. She wants to get this right. That's because of her tremendous 9th house. The 9th house is opposite the 3rd house. And the 3rd house is the mind. The 9th house is our mind. In this chapter in this book, I'm going to really push it on you heavily. This chapter in here about the 6 oppositions, the 6 polarities is really critical that you learn. It's a very short chapter, but the 6 polarities are really important for learning. What's the 1st house? How's it different than the 7th? What's the 2nd house? How's it different than the 8th? What's the 3rd house? The mind, the local mind, nearby. 9th house, far away, big mind, philosophy. So learning those polarities are really, really important to being a successful interpreter. So we see Venus is in Leo, Moon is in Leo, Pluto's in Leo, Mars is in Leo, and they're all in the 9th house. That's all determined because we know her birth time. Okay, so now all of a sudden this Virgo, who's not real interested in philosophy, all of a sudden is. Let me get back to this, and we'll finish up with this. I told you about 7th house relationship, 8th house deeper relationship. The 9th house is about beyond one-to-one relationships. It's the school, it's transfer students, it's traveling to other countries. 9th house people with a lot of Sagittarius, they come to me and they all say the same thing, all of them. I say, what do you want to do? And they say, travel. And I say, where do you want to go? And they say, I don't care. I just want to go. And they mean that. That's very 9th house-like. That's very Sagittarian because they want to explore. Mutable fire. Mutable fire. I'm going to spread my fire everywhere. You see how everything goes back to that first lesson. First thing we did was a little M and F. Mutable fire. Based on that. The last quadrant of the zodiac is the world and beyond. The world and beyond. So we've transcended personal things. We've transcended relationship things. We're now in the world and beyond. Who's king of the world? Muhammad Ali. That's why Capricorn's at the top. The 10th house is Capricornian. And in this particular case, she has the sign of Leo there. Okay? But she has her sun there, and where your natal sun is very important. So we know 2 things about her already. We know Sun and Virgo always real uptight about how you see their work skills. Big deal. Cut my arm off before you say my work stinks. Cut both arms off. They're obsessed with how well they are seen with their work skills. Now you put it in the 10th house. Now she's hanging out a shingle. She wants the world to know about it. So it's really important to Peggy that she's very, very good at her work. And I'm sure she is. And now we still see this 9th house is heavily populated, which we'll bring into the translations later. The 11th house is the higher octave of the 10th. And it's beyond just your job. It's like your associations, the clubs you're involved in, your friends, the groups that you're involved in. Very important house. So you'll notice that these succeedent houses, in each quadrant we have cardinal, succeedent, cadent. C-A-D-E-N-T. Cardinal, succeedent, cadent. Cardinal, succeedent, cadent. Cardinal, succeedent, cadent. Succeedent houses are concentrations. They're almost always a higher octave of the house before it. Okay, you see how the 4th house is a cardinal house about the family. The 5th house is the children. It's a higher octave of it. The 8th house, the 7th house is cardinal. 7th house is relationships. The 8th house is the marriage. higher octave. The 10th house is my business. The 11th house is higher octave of the 10th house, which is my groups and associations. When you see a lot of people with planets in this house, almost always they're chosen to be officers. They're in a lot of clubs with their friends. They have a lot of friendships. They have a lot of things going on. Now, don't worry if you don't have the houses memorized. Just get a basic little idea to start with. The 12th house is very hard to understand. All the cadent houses are hard. The 3rd and the 9th house are cadent. They're not real hard to understand, but certainly the 6th and the 12th are very hard to understand. But I'm going to leave it go before I confuse you. Those houses are about disbursement, getting out into the world. So you see that this quadrant, which is covered so much in the book, is about my job, the institutions that I'm involved with, and how am I interested in the whole cosmos? That's the 12th house, which is so big it's hard to talk about. Now, the first thing I noticed when I did this chart, the first thing beginners should notice is the sun is in Virgo, the moon is in Leo, and Scorpio is rising. Those are the three things. Here's my sun sign, Virgo. Here's my moon sign, Leo. Here's my rising sign, Scorpio. Well, we know already Virgo can be pretty tough-minded. Moon in Leo is very sure of itself, especially when it's next door to Pluto. See it? Next door to Pluto? And Scorpio can be very tough-minded. So you might think that Peggy is friendly little worker next to you and kind of easy to get along with, but I'll tell you what, you better do the job right. She's going to tell you. Peggy doesn't like it. She doesn't like anybody doing a half-ass job. That'll drive her nuts. And it will come out of her somehow. One of the secrets, this is a really big secret. Shh. One of the really big secrets I've learned in astrology, and it's so true, and I'm still on the case. I'm still on the case with my spyglass here. Virgos are really, really critical, but they don't want anybody to know. They hate when you find out that they're critical. And I think it's because they're so self-critical that they're such nice people, really. They don't like it to spill out on other people. And they're known, and I've worked with them, they're known for not criticizing other people. I made a movie about a 80-year-old chairmaker. He was a Virgo down in the mountains of Kentucky. And I, just for the hell of it, I tried to get him to criticize somebody. He just never would criticize anybody. And all kind of things were going on in his community. He just stood there whittling the chair and whittling the tree and made chairs out by hand, born 1897 or something. He would not criticize anybody, wouldn't do it. But when you get to know Virgo, you'll get to see how they really feel very privately. Okay, I don't have time to read chats, but I do read all the chats when the show is over. For those of you watching on YouTube, we can chat with each other. You cannot see the message, but we can. If you do want to join us any Thursday night, just go to Astrology Unplugged. Put in Astrology Unplugged into Google and you'll get the link, 8 o'clock Eastern time. We're scheduled, this is week 6, we're scheduled to go 4 more weeks or whatever. So, we do see right away in the chart of Peggy, so you start to blend these things in your mind. How can you do any blending when you don't know what the thing is? So, you got to know what lemon is. You got to know what cinnamon is. You got to know what milk is before you get an idea how they're blend. So what you do is you start to blend Virgo and you start to blend Scorpio. Let's leave the moon out of it for a minute because The thing that's in common between Virgos and Scorpios, these two signs don't mess around. These two signs are the hardest signs on being hard on yourself. And I would certainly try to put sprinkle dust on Peggy to get her to back off a little bit, because she's really hard on herself. And what's great is the moon in Leo really helps her, even though the moon's next to Pluto. The moon in Leo is very buoyant. It's a fixed fire sign. Don't you cross off week one. Keep going back to week one. Keep learning this fixed fire, cardinal fire, all that. Fixed fire means I'm fiery. I'm just like the John F. Kennedy grave. The fire's going to always burn. You ever go to D.C.? That fire's coming out of the ground and it's been burning since '63. I always think of that when I think of Leo. I think of pushing a beach ball underwater. Boom, back up. Push them down, they bounce back up. That's Leo energy. And that's in this case, that's very good when you got a sun in Virgo and a moon in Scorpio, which both have a tendency to be too picky of the self. Where'd that come from? Well, you shouldn't have said that. The moon in Leo is like, oh, to heck with it. You know, I'm bubbly. It's upbeat. Now, if you got a person who's in Aries with a moon in Sag, and then they have something else in Leo, you might have too much fire. So you have to blend these things together. Okay? You have to blend these things together. Now, I would say she has a very strong, stubborn streak, especially if you're going to dare talk politics or religion with her. You better come equipped, because she's got that heavy 9th house with all that Leo there, which means she's really sure of herself. Okay? Now, she's probably right most of the time too, but she would definitely want some sprinkle dust on her. And sometimes she's got to admit she is wrong and she needs to keep an open mind. But this is how you blend these things. All right, now, I got so many. I'm trying to keep myself going so slowly, and it's so difficult because church screams so much to me. All right. Notice there's no planets in the first house. Okay? Notice she's got the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which is one of the hardest things to translate. Believe me. And that was true from about all the people, let's see, I've got it just about as close. People born in the early 50s had this. Okay, the Saturn is next to Neptune. And then for a couple of years, Saturn just stayed there, and Neptune stays there because it goes so slowly. So everybody in her class the year before, the year after graduating class, they all had this Saturn-Neptune. That's co-generational, sub-generational. So it's not so important for her personally because her whole class had that. But over here with the personal planets, these things move very quickly, and this is really where you get a big story. Here's your 5 personal planets plus Pluto. Pluto is in Leo from 1940 to 1970, or 1940 to late 50s. Okay, about 19 years, I would think, something like that. So Pluto was just going through Leo that whole time. But here she's born. Here comes Venus. Here comes the moon. Here's Mars. Here's Mercury. Here's Sun. Boom, 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 boom. 5 personal planets all around Pluto. Now, keep in mind what I told you. Mercury is always close to the Sun. It's either in the sign next door or in the same sign. It cannot be farther, because it's closer to the Sun than us. It's only 3 places. All Virgos that have ever lived have Mercury in Libra or Virgo or Leo. All Tauruses have Mercury in Taurus or Aries or Gemini. It just stays married to the Sun. Venus is likewise, except it's 5 places. Venus is next door. Venus could be in Cancer. It could be in Leo, could be in Virgo, could be in Libra or in Scorpio. It's only 5 possible places. In her case, she's got 5 personal planets all within 2 signs. And it gets much further complicated because Pluto is 1 degree from Mars and it's 5 degrees from the moon. Pluto changes everything, but that's not for our discussion just yet because the outer planets getting involved with the inner planets is very complicated. Okay. She was asking me earlier, she said, I've got a square between Saturn and Neptune and Uranus. We're going to talk about squares and aspects later on, but I wanted to just point out to you that her whole generation has this Uranus square to Saturn and Neptune. So they're not that important. It more or less defines her subgeneration, but not her. Now let's talk about this. Here's the real complex issue with her. Just like with another friend of ours we have on this show, who's not here tonight, the other lady has a lot of Virgo with a lot of Leo. She has a lot of Leo with a lot of Virgo. She's the opposite of Peggy. Okay, when you have a lot of Leo and Virgo, what's the issue? Here's the issue. You're not going to understand it unless you read this. And the other astrology book, don't do it. Here's why. You're not going to understand Leo until you understand Cancer, the sign before Cancer, because every sign does what it can and it turns into the next sign. Well, Cancer is very emotional, it's somewhat timid, it's very tender, and it's very loving, but it's very sensitive. Okay, that's what gives rise to Leo. The Leo comes out and says, boy, I can't stay that way all the time. I've got to start getting pride in myself. The lion. The Leo is about the lion being proud. What is my domain? Any Leo you know will have a domain, even if they're pushing a broom in a motel. They'll have a domain. Don't mess with their domain because it's their domain. We saw Castro with Cuba. That was one Leo in his domain. So Leo is a reaction against Cancer. You have to remember that it's a reaction against, I'm not timid. I can handle this. Where's my jungle? I'm speaking now. Okay, that's where the pride of Leo comes. That's where De Niro gets that from. You ain't talking to me. You talking to me? That's where that comes. Leo is gifted with that sense of, hey, I'm tough, I'm a badass, look at me. Okay? Look at Michael Jackson with his sun in Virgo and all the Leo he had. There's great conflict between Leo and Virgo, and we're getting to that. So what Leo is, it's a reaction against, it's a teenager who wants to grow out of that tender state. He wants to grow out of it. That's why it's ruled by the sun, and the sun is expressive. You get Leos in your office, do a reading, all they want to talk about is they want to create. They're maniacal about creating. I just read the book of Neil Young. Neil Young had tremendous power on his sun. His sun was right on the ascendant, right there. And that's why he just keeps writing albums. He just keeps producing. He's got to create the sun. Well, after a while, the soul can't get any further with just you creating, and boop, up pops a Virgo. That's the difference with Leo and Virgo. The Virgos can't stand to have lampshade on their head anymore. And they really are really nervous being around people that are pompous. Okay? And it's a continuation. It's a maturity in the zodiac that the Virgo comes along and the Virgo matures itself and takes ownership. And Virgo people are very humble and they want to be in the background. So you see the difference between the on-stage Leo and the Virgo that doesn't want to. Well, what are you going to do when you got a bunch of both, like she does? She's got a bunch of stuff that wants to go on stage and a bunch of stuff that don't embarrass me. What do? They got to like turn around in the back seat. I'm parking this car and you two got to get along back there. That's what it's like. And I'm sure in Peggy's own way, she's had to run across this somehow, and she put Pluto right in the middle of it, which really enhances things. So sometimes she's got to go on stage with all those bitching little complaining children that are in Virgo. Oh, I don't want to go on stage. Don't make you go on stage. But she needs to. And Virgos are real damn good at suppressing themselves. Don't do it. I can't tell you the list of Virgos I have, and it all comes down to one thing. One thing. Are you going to let yourself live? Are you going to let yourself have some fun? Are you going to let yourself be okay? Let yourself express yourself beside what you think you should do. Virgo's got should-isms. Leo could care less whether they should. I'm on stage. I care what I should do. Okay? Now, on the other hand, the Virgo's got to sing. And the Leo's going, oh, God, they're going to sing their little tune. And Virgo's so embarrassed because the Leo's so embarrassed because the Virgo is doing something little and tiny and cute, not making many waves. And the Leo wants to make big waves. So how do you deal with a chart? It's very common, this dichotomy. How do you deal with a chart? It's got a lot of Leo, it's got a lot of Virgo. How do you deal with it? And I told you I want to write a book about combinations of signs, which would really be trying. Here's how you deal with it. You get above it. You realize what both are trying to do. You get above it. The Leo wants to express itself because it needs to express itself because the soul is growing. The Virgo needs something to work with because it needs to perfect it, but it can't perfect it if the thing doesn't exist. You know, what does a Virgo do when all the boxes are finished and they're sitting there at the assembly line? What do? Just bide your time. What do they do when everything's fixed? That's the problem with Virgo. They don't have a strong sense of being. They can't let themselves just be. So, her challenge in this lifetime is to allow herself to express herself and to perfect it what she can, but at the same time, be the worker, be the fixer, be the perfectionist, but not let it kill her. Let both exist. They've got to become tight, these two energies. And signs next to signs don't get along well. You think of the signs next to you, you don't get along well with the signs next door to you. You just don't. Basic astrology. So let's talk with Peggy for a second. Boy, did her Virgo get nervous when I said that. Now, Peggy,
okay,
explain to me what I'm talking about, how you see these two fields of energy.
well, the Leo part, I'm in a band and I play bass guitar.
Great, awesome.
But the Virgo part is afraid to be animated.
So you're in the back part of the stage.
Well, no, I'm in front, but I don't, everybody else is moving and everything. And when I have the bass, I can't. But when I sing, I can be the Leo Virgo. But when
it ain't a Virgo out there singing, I'll tell you that.
No, the Leo takes over, but I have to play the bass and sing. So I stand there and I'm trying to make the transition to be more like the singer when I have the bass.
Okay, but the transition that really needs to happen is you need to blend both.
Yes.
You need to blend both. And Leo has a lot of problems that Virgo solves and vice versa. So they can be complementary, but you're going to have to work at it. And if I were working on your personal chart and a personal reading, I would go into your past lives and I would see where this whole thing's about. And I'll guarantee you what your chart is about is coming out of your last lifetime into this one. You felt very egocentric. And in this lifetime, you wanted to become more humble. And that's why you put all those planets in Virgo. And that's where we would start a discussion. But what happens when your Virgo wins?
Well, in that case, it doesn't. But like if I'm working, then I just work myself to death. You know, I mean,
Sure.
If I have something to do, I'll just keep doing it until I'm done.
Sure.
I work overtime.
If you make 50 widgets, you're a hell of a lot better than yesterday at 49. And tomorrow you better make 51. And you got to make 52. And you'll kill yourself. And that's the problem with Virgo. That's the problem. Virgo, we all have a myth, all of us. Virgo's myth, if I keep working harder, I'll be better off. No, you won't.
I know.
The only sign that speaks the absolute truth is Pisces, which is just keep surrendering to God. Then you'll be better off. If I keep surrendering, I'll be better off. Yes, that's true. If you keep surrendering, yes. That's an absolute. It always works. Let's get back to your chart. All right. So now we've got to take a look. I know if I'm dating this young lady and I got her birthday from her, and I know she's got Venus in Leo, and I know she's got Moon in Leo, and I know she's got Mars in Leo, and I'm about to ask her out on a date, and if I knew she was just a Virgo, we would go out to the county fair, and she'd have a great time. But not with all this Leo here. She wants to go to the theater. She wants to see expression, okay? Not just see people working. She wants to see the clowns and the carnival and colors and activity. Okay, so these are very fiery. The Venus and Mars are both in Leo. And so therefore, when you see all this Leo, you know you don't have too many problems with the Virgo being small. Let me explain. The Virgo can get problematic because it becomes so critical of every utterance. When you got all this Leo in your chart, you don't worry about it. Because Leo is very confident, it expresses itself. And I would much rather see her with a bunch of Leo than a bunch of Virgo and a little bit of Leo. But you still got this battle going on. Now, when transits today go through Leo, the Leo part will be enhanced. When they get out of Leo and go into Virgo, then the Virgo part will be enhanced and the Leo part will have to get quieter. That's by comparing today's planets to where they were before. Now, enter Pluto. Okay? And I've told you, Pluto's a very universal planet. It's very impersonal. It's extremely passionate. And it's hell on wheels. It's tough. A tough, passionate, Neil Young type of planet. It's right next to Mars. Now what happens is her Mars is 1 degree away from Pluto, which is too close in my book. Venus is 5 degrees away. This Mars in Leo just took on the nature of Mars in Scorpio. She's just picked up a lot of Scorpio because Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. She's just picked a lot of Scorpio energy to her Mars and to her Moon. Now, first of all, we'll get to the Moon in a second. Pluto, Mars. Mars in Leo is what the president has. And he abuses it terribly because it's right there on his ascendant and it becomes, you think I won't? I will. Don't you dare me. I'll do it. And he just gets really obnoxious about what he's doing with his Mars in Leo. But typically Mars in Leo means I'm going to do something. I said it, I'm doing it. It'd be a nice energy. You want your Mars to be unfettered. Your Mars is your aggressive part, but you don't want to bulldoze over top of people. Pluto Mars can be a bulldozer. You can run and flatten people out. You got to watch it for being ham-handed, heavy-handed. You got to watch it. And she has a tendency, I don't care what she says, there is this tendency inside her that when she gets frustrated with something, she wants to just clear the room. Everybody get the hell out, I'll get it done. And she ramrods through because she got powerful energy. Okay? Because of Pluto Mars. Now, Pluto Moon is another story. Pluto Moon is probably the hardest thing to interpret. I had a girlfriend one time, 150 years ago. Pluto was opposite her moon. It took me 3 years to interpret it. It took me 3 years to interpret what that Pluto moon meant. I'm saying that loudly because I don't want you to feel bad if you look at stuff and it's in the category of I don't know. But I finally figured it out. And it was tough. Pluto moon, Pluto being that powerful force, the moon being the mother, not always, but usually infers that you got trouble with the mother with a power struggle. And usually what it means is the mother is using your energy. She's sucking from you. Usually. Maybe not even aware of it. In my girlfriend's case, it wasn't. In my girlfriend's case, she was putting the mother on a pedestal. The mother wasn't putting herself there. Everybody I talked to knew the mother was great. It wasn't her, but she had issues to work out with her mother. That comes from the moon Pluto. The moon Pluto makes that moon very passionate. Now notice this. Look how complicated things get. The moon is exalted. The moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus. It's the best place for the moon to be. It's in its fall when it's opposite. So the moon is in its fall in Scorpio. Well, the moon next to Pluto is very much like having a moon in Scorpio. So we got problems with the moon when the moon's in Scorpio or when the moon is next to Pluto. And what could that be? Well, the problem with Scorpio energy is Scorpio energy turns everything into mind. Taurus is all about mine. Scorpio is about what's mine is mine, what's yours is mine too. That's the problem with Scorpio. So she has to watch for that, but I don't worry about her. Why do I not worry about her at all? Because Leo energy is very magnanimous and very dignified, respects the dignity of other people, and she's a Virgo. Virgo is the humblest sign there is. So I don't expect her getting out of control with her moon Pluto. You see how complex it gets? But she's going to have very deeply passionate energies. So when we look at all those Leo energies, we not only see the beach ball, we not only see the upbeat energy high, but we see Pluto there with it. So we know it's intense and tough too. And I know for certain I got to take her deep into past life readings and figure out what's going on with the mother figure in her mind. Okay, now let's look elsewhere because you can get lost somewhere forever in a chart. It's no wonder there aren't many astrologers out there because you got to be out of your mind to do it. Ain't that right, Mark? How you do. That's the truth. That's how it goes. All right. Now, I want to tell you that from 1937, from 1952 until 1989, for 37 years, Chiron was opposite Uranus. They traveled opposite each other. Almost everybody born for 37 years had Chiron opposite Uranus. The direct translation of that is alternative types of healing. And Uranus was discovered in 1977, around the time that everybody went nuts and started looking at alternative ways of healing. Everybody wanted to be a healer. It all started coming from The first astrologer in history was Chiron. 2 months after it was discovered, I became an astrologer. 2 months later. The reason I say this, usually when I have a student who really wants to do the work, who really wants to be an astrologer, astrologers of all the symbols I've ever seen, most astrologers I know that really have the natural ability have Uranus opposite Chiron. They have this. And there's something about it. And notice in her chart, it makes a right angle to these two planets. Here's the opposition, which we're going to get into next week. All the aspects, one, how does one position versus another? But this opposition makes this T-square over to Neptune and Saturn, right? And right now, the planets are bombarding this planet right now, 24 degrees Libra. That planet's getting bombarded at the point of this triangle. And that, my friends, is why she's into astrology now. You're not going to believe this stuff. You can tell from a chart once you learn how to read it. All right. So what do we know? We know that she's a Virgo. We know she got a lot of Leo. You don't see Virgos up on stage playing bass. No. How many rock stars you know that are Virgos? One hand. They're out there. Van Morrison, they're out there. But they're out there because of other planets. It's not the Virgo. And I'll bet you anything, they don't mess around either. They got their licks down. They know what they're doing. That's the Virgo. Then she's got the Leo. So we have a Leo type of Virgo. Now, we know she got not only Scorpio rising, but she's got Pluto next to Mars and next to the moon. So we have a Leo, Virgo, Scorpio. This is why astrologers are always harping on you to take your Capricorn chain off and throw it away. Don't identify with your sun sign. This is normal. She is a Leo, Virgo, Scorpio. And that is very typical. Most people have 5 influences. Most people have 4 or 5. Sometimes you'll see 6. You'll seldom see 3. Most people have 4 or 5 signs in their zodiac, in their chart, strong. Okay? Now, I'm going to switch over to Ray's chart just to show you an example how other charts could be. Okay, this is Rachel's chart. Let me get it on your screen. I have a little monitor here that tells me what you can and can't see. Okay, here we go again. Now we're into another person. We're looking at an Aquarian, okay, with a moon in Taurus, which is exalted. The moon is very strong, with Saturn rising in the chart, and Cancer is the rising sign. So we have a Cancer rising, moon in Taurus, sun in Aquarius. Now, right away, we know that's really good. Why? Because Aquarians traditionally can have trouble with their emotions. They're an intellectual sign. There's no sign as intellectual as Aquarius. And they've got to get help in their chart to get feelings out. Well, a moon in Taurus will really help that. Okay, the moon is very strong in Taurus. Ignore these grayed out planets. Ignore these two. And we see the chart's very spread out. This is a good sign of a person with a breadth of knowledge. Cancer is rising. So not only does she get water from Cancer rising, she gets water from having a strong moon in Taurus. So we know that she's got great potential to be balanced intellectually, emotionally. Okay? Now, the thing that gives her curveballs in her chart, which we'll get to later, is Saturn is too strong in the first house. The first house, I told you, when you have a planet in the first house, Saturn, when you have a planet in the first house, draw it this big. Okay? That's what happens to a planet in the first house. It's called rising because it's about to rise up over the horizon. the left-hand side is the west in astrology. That planet is rising. So in this case, the Saturn is too strong and the emotions have a hard time getting out, even though they're strong, they have a hard time getting out. So the question becomes, why did she put Saturn there? Why did she birth when Saturn was there? And there's reasons for it. Okay, go back to the chart. The Mercury is in the same sign as the Sun. It's in Aquarius. Here's Aquarius. Remember, Aquarius is an air sign. Even though the word aqua is there, that stands for water bearer. Why do they call it water bearer when they're always spilling the water? It's because they're giving back. They're giving back to the world by sprinkling the water. That's what the Aquarius means, but it's an air sign. It's heavily, heavily intellectual. Okay, notice that the Venus is also there. The Venus could be 5 places. The Mercury could be 3 places, but they're all 3 there in Aquarius. And they're all pretty much in the 8th house and the 9th house. Okay? This is the intellectual house. This is the philosophical house, high education, college, 8th house, deeply penetrating. So you've got the Sun in the 8th house in Aquarius. Sun is in Aquarius in the 8th house. All 3 are major symbols of research. You know this by studying. Aquarius is the researcher. They're the organizer. They figure out, do you know what that means? Look at that. Do you know what that means? Moreover, look at that. Look at this. Do you know what that means? Coronavirus. Do you realize the implications? That's Aquarius. 8th house is the Scorpio house. It's the house for the researcher, the psychologist, the researcher in Aquarius in the 8th house. So we know that Rachel has a phenomenal ability. If I had to hire anybody to do my taxes or to do research and throw them a jelly sandwich and lock the door, get this done, they're going to get it done. Why do you think this is so well written? Well, I wrote the essence of it, but my Aquarian girlfriend got on me, and we sludged through every sentence till it was shining. She just made me go every word. I didn't even know she's like that. Till we started going through this. And we polished and polished. Is that the right word? Is that the right word? Is that the right word? And my Mercury's in Sagittarius. What the hell? That's the word. My Mercury's in Sag. It's good enough. It's close enough. Her Mercury's in Aquarius. Oh, no. No, ain't the right word. No, no. And when I would get the right word, she'd go, yes. But that's why almost everybody talks about how smoothly written it is, and hats off to her. That's fixed air. Aquarius, fixed air. Give me a thought, and I'll mess with that sucker till I get it right. You got to read some of the articles she's written. Wow. And they take her a long time because she fusses with it. But when they come out, they're powerful, and everything in the article is written in a relationship to itself, and it's all in harmony with itself. You can tell if it's me because I'm out there waving some fiery wand. But anyhow, that's why. Okay, so we see this deep penetrating researcher with a very strong knowledge. This 9th house will also give you inklings to what happened to this person in college. 9th house is your college experience, higher learning. So we want to make that blink. We want to make that blink and then talk to them about it. Don't just start spouting off stuff, well, you were this and this and that. Start saying, I see this blinking. What happened with your college? And it's like, well, when I left MIT for Caltech, you know, and you talk to them and they reveal it. Okay, what else do we see? Let's let that tame down for a minute. We see that very strong moon. It's in that really big 11th house. Look how big that 11th house is. 1.5 signs. 1.5 signs of the zodiac. And that's because she's born up north in Wisconsin. Look at these houses, how small they are. This is very normal, okay? So we know she's Cancerian, and she's very Aquarian. So the question I've always had when I've read for, which has been many times, what's this Saturn doing? And the Saturn's in Cancer. So this whole theme of this chart is I've got all these abilities, but I'm keeping a close guard on my emotions. Why? And I'm not going to get into it because you got to do harmonics and other types of charts. And she took the chart when the moment was right. You take the chart when the moment is right. There's no doubt in my mind that out of your past lives, whatever you want to call it, you sit with your spirit guides and you figure out what you've got to learn in this lifetime. And you pick the exact second to be born. Well, what if I'm born C-section? You're not born C-section. You're born when God's ready for you. I don't care if a knife is involved, the belly's involved, whatever. You're born at the second you have to be born because you are an emissary of that moment. Every moment of life, the universe is in a completely different state. And when you're born at that moment, you are the Peggy of that moment. You are the Rick of that moment. And that's why when you express yourself, it comes out uniquely. And we're all different. We're an emissary of that moment. We're finally learning. I saw an article tonight. The New York Times is calling it the Trump virus. We're finally learning quantum physics. You think it ain't the Trump virus? You think it's some virus that came from some chicken in China? We're learning how we're all connected. We don't know this, but the old stuff has to die. I got a little smile from Mark that time. That's good. Because we all know it's a Trump virus because you can't kill it. Oh, I'm bad. That's what happens when you get your own show. All right, let me move on here. We're going to go a few more minutes. All right. So there's other things in the chart. The Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Here's Mars at 0 in very early Capricorn. Mars' best place to be is in Capricorn. And that's because it's so controlled and it's efficient. And Mars is your wild energy, and using your energy appropriately and intelligently is in the sign of Capricorn. And across from it is Mars in Cancer, which is the worst place for Mars. Okay? How are you going to be aggressive and protect yourself at the same time? How are you going to go out into the world with your testosterone, but make sure you're safe at the same time? That's why Mars in Cancer is a tough place. So, I'm going to stop on that note. I wanted to just show you, I can look at a chart within a few seconds, tell what the theme is. And you look deeper and you see sub-themes, etc. Now, you're going to get bogged down when you read books when you begin. There's no way around this. Let me put this graphic up here for those of you. Okay, the book I'm suggesting to augment, to go with your exquisite zodiac, this March and McEver's book. They have a whole series of them. And I want you to understand that when you're learning, the books are going to teach you and screw you up at the same time. They're just going to, because a book can only tell you Mars in Cancer means this. Pluto in Leo means this. Well, what you'll find out when you talk to human beings is it doesn't always have a one-to-one correspondence. Somebody's got Jupiter in the second house, and they're spending a lot of money. This woman has Jupiter in the second house, and they're spending a lot of money. This person has Jupiter in the second house, and they won't spend a penny. That's what I mean. It's going to teach you, but you got to be flexible when you're reading, because the other planets get involved. So next week, what you're going to see the aspects. I'm going to teach you about the Ptolemaic, P-T-O-L, named after Ptolemy, P-T-O-L-E-M-I-C, Ptolemaic aspects, 5 of them. The conjunction, when 2 planets are together. The opposition, when 2 planets are opposite each other. You give them about 9 degrees of wiggle space. When 2 planets are opposite each other. The square, when 2 planets are at a right angle. These are all very common. The square is when they're 90 degrees relatively, they're bothering each other. The trine, when they're about 120 degrees. The trines are very positive, T-R-I-N-E, 120 degrees. We're going to go over this in detail, and I'll have a graphic for you. The trine is when 2 planets really get along well. It's why Audrey Hepburn was exceptionally beautiful. Neptune trine to Venus. It's why Ali would knock you out with 1 punch. Mars trine to Pluto. It's why Bradshaw could throw the football 70 yards. Mercury trine to Uranus. Trines are 2 planets that are really getting along well and helping each other. Okay? The squares and the oppositions is where your tension comes in. The squares and oppositions. We're going to go through each of these. The final one is sextile, where you're 60 degrees apart, 2 signs apart. That's like a mini trine. They're harmonious also. So we're going to go over the conjunction, the opposition, the square, the trine, and the sextile. So eventually, we're now getting the final chapter on the screen. You get the 10 planets in one of the 12 signs, in one of the 12 houses, and they're making aspects to each other. That's the heart of a chart. That's the heart of it. Now, the way you learn astrology is you look at tons of charts. I've looked at least 10,000. At least, because I never stop. You don't learn by looking at Peggy and Ray's chart. You get started because you get an idea, then you get an idea. And everybody's so different, it's unbelievable. And I know 3 people born on the same day, same year, and close to the same time. And I can see where they have in common, and I can see what's different. Because they're mom and dad and their socioeconomic differences. But anyhow, you're right on track. Next week will be week 7. This week 6 will be put on YouTube tonight or tomorrow. And where you should be now is you're starting to get an idea. Don't worry if you look at a chart, and by the time this class is over, we're going to look at all of you, unless there becomes 50 of you. We're going to look at all your charts, and you're going to say, oh, and I'm going to tell you what this piece means, what that piece, and then where you go from here when we talk about the last week, we'll start to insinuate what happens when today's planets are put on the outside of the circle. Here's my birth chart. This never changes. Here's the outside circle, which is the planets that keep moving. That's why things come over me. That's why what got into me. The US's chart. You think that ain't significant? Yeah. Now, beside what I've mentioned to you, there's tons and tons of other tributaries to astrology, which we're going to stay away from. We're going to learn the basic chart and a little bit about the transits coming over it. And we're going to stop there. because I got to use the judgment of what is the end of this beginning astrology class. So when you come out of here after 10 weeks or so, you're going to have a basic idea what your chart means. You're going to have a basic idea of this planet hit me in 1965. No wonder. This planet hit me last summer. No wonder I broke my ankle. So keep at it, and you're not wasting your time if you keep going over the beginning meaning of the signs, if you keep going over the definitions of the houses. You want to do that, you need to learn your glyphs, and I'm not even going to give you any homework because I'm easy. Okay? But that's it, really. If you have any questions, feel free to open your microphone and ask. Miss Susan Rogerson, where are you in from?
San Francisco tonight.
Oh, San Francisco. Well, where are you going to be tomorrow?
We're traveling about an hour north, so they're taking us to see some of the sights. It's like 80 and sunny here, so we're enjoying it.
Wow. Where are you from normally?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, great. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at. Wonderful city. Hey, good to have you. Glad you're with us. Tell your friends. Thank you. Now, I'll see you all next Thursday night where we'll go into week 7. We'll be talking about the houses, and I'll be using other people in this group as examples, okay? Sayonara. Thank you all on YouTube for being with us. Enjoyed having you. Hope you're learning.